I'm Aaron Klemm, founder of Inflection Point Wealth Management. We work with senior executives and high-earning families on the intersection of equity compensation, tax planning, and retirement. This is a different kind of video, not a deep dive on one instrument, a fast pass through the 7 things I find myself saying in some form or another in almost every client conversation. And if any of these land for you, there's a full breakdown in the series, link in the description. 10 years, hundreds of client situations, every type of equity comp, every tax mistake, every planning gap. Most of what gets written about equity compensation is either too basic to be useful or too complicated to act on. After 10 years of working exclusively in this space, I have a pretty clear view of what actually moves the needle and what sounds important but doesn't. This video is the compressed version. Not everything, the things that cost the executive the most when they get them wrong, and the fixes that may be simpler than most people think. Lesson 1. The withholding gap is one of the most predictable surprises in equity comp. When your RSUs vest or your stock options are exercised, your company withholds federal tax automatically at the supplemental rate, 22%, until you get to $1 million of supplemental compensation. That number has nothing to do with your actual tax rate. Say you've got $600,000 in salary and bonus, and then a $200,000 RSU vest lands on top of that. That vest isn't taxed in a vacuum. It's stacked on top of the income you already have. So for a couple filing jointly, almost all of it lands in the 35% federal bracket, and the very top dollars tip into 37%. Your company withheld 22%. That's roughly a 13-point gap on every dollar of that vest, about $27,000 in federal tax that was never withheld before state taxes. The money doesn't appear anywhere on your pay stub. It builds silently through the year, and it arrives as a tax bill in April, when the year is closed and the only option is to write the check. The fix is simple. In Q2, run a projection. Total your expected W-2 income for the year. Apply your actual marginal rate to the equity comp portion. Compare that to the 22% that was withheld. The difference is what you owe. Fund it with estimated tax payments before December 31st. This is not complicated. It's just a calculation that almost never happens automatically. Make it happen. Real quick, if any one of these land for you, the full breakdown is in the series. Link in the description. Lesson 2. Lot selection is a paperwork change that most brokers default wrong. If you have RSU shares that have been accumulating for several years, vesting in different years at different stock prices, your brokerage account is holding multiple tax lots. Each one has its own cost basis. When you sell shares, your broker has to know which lot to sell first. The default is FIFO, or first in, first out. The oldest shares, often with the lowest basis, go first. The maximum taxable gain goes out the door first. The alternative is HIFO, or highest in, first out, or specific lot selection. You tell the broker to sell the newest, highest basis shares automatically first, same cash raised, dramatically less gain recognized. Here's what the difference looks like in practice. An executive with $1.5 million to raise from RSU sales, holding shares vested across 6 years at very different prices, can recognize $1.175 million of capital gain on the FIFO default, or $462,000 using HIFO lot selection. The tax difference at the long-term capital gains rate, roughly $169,000 in this example. Same shares, same sale, one broker setting. The only catch, this has to be set before the sale. You cannot retroactively reassign lots after the trade settles. Before you place any RSU sale orders, log into your brokerage account and confirm the lot identification method. Change it if it says FIFO. Lesson 3. Stock options are not a tax decision. They are a stock bet with a tax variable. Most content on stock option exercise timing frames it as a tax optimization problem. Exercise this year or next year to hit the lower bracket. That framing is incomplete. Here's what an unexercised stock option actually is. It's a leveraged, downside protected position on the stock. You do not participate on the downside past the strike price. If your options were granted at a $50 strike price and the stock goes to $10, you don't exercise, you lose nothing, and the options simply expire. The worst case is 0. You did not pay for them. But the upside is uncapped, and because you only pay the strike price instead of the full market price, every dollar of stock appreciation creates more percentage return than it would if you own the shares outright. A 33% move in the stock can double your spread. That is leverage, and it is the entire reason options are one of the most powerful instruments in executive comp. This is where you want to take risk in your equity compensation package. Large upside moves create massive outcomes. Adverse moves create no downside consequences past what you've already locked in. The asymmetry is in your favor. What this means in practice: do not exercise early just to save tax unless the tax savings are more valuable to you right now than the leverage you are giving up. For an executive early in their career with high conviction in the company and a long time horizon, the case for holding the leverage is often stronger than the case for optimizing the tax. Model both before you decide. Tax is one variable, not the only one. Lesson 4. Deferred comp is a powerful tool in the package and very dangerous when defaulted. Deferred compensation lets you defer a portion of your salary, bonus, or incentive comp into a future year. Unlike a 401k, there are no IRS contribution limits. You can defer 25%, 50%, sometimes more. The money grows tax deferred and you pay ordinary income tax only when it's distributed to you. The thesis is tax arbitrage. Defer at your peak working bracket, 35 or 37%, and distribute in retirement at a lower rate. For executives with high incomes and peak earning years, this is one of the most impactful planning tools available. The danger is in the distribution election. At enrollment, you make two decisions: how much to defer and when and how to receive back. Those elections are largely irrevocable. You cannot change your mind mid-year. You cannot pull the money out early. The default distribution election at most companies is lump sum at separation from service. For an executive who has been deferring $200,000 a year for a decade, that means $2 million has been deferred. If that $2 million of deferral grows at an average of 8% a year, you could have approximately $3 million hitting as ordinary income in a single tax year, stacked on top of file year salary and bonus. Federal tax on the non-qualified deferred compensation distribution alone, over $1 million. Paid back to the IRS in 1 year what took a decade to build. The fix: think through the distribution schedule before you enroll. What does your retirement income picture look like? What years will be the lowest in income? Spread the distributions across those years. A 5-year or a 10-year installment payout into a low-income window captures the arbitrage the plan was designed for. A lump sum default surrenders most of it. Lesson 5. Concentrated stock is not a tax problem, it's a risk problem. Many executives hold large positions in their employer stock. Years of RSU vests, ESPP purchases, equity grants accumulate over a career. The position has grown, the embedded gain is significant, and every time they think about diversifying, the first thing that comes to mind is the tax bill. Here's the reframe. If the stock drops 40%, which concentrated single stock positions do with regularity, the loss absorbed is larger than the tax bill that was avoided. The executive who held to avoid the tax paid a higher price than the one who paid the tax and diversified. Concentrated stock is a risk problem first. The question is not how do I avoid the tax, it is how do I reduce the exposure in a way that manages the tax efficiently along the way. The answer is gain budgeting. Deciding each year how much gain you can afford to realize, coordinating that with your bracket, your other income, and your charitable giving, and executing a disciplined sell schedule over time. A series of smaller planned decisions. And for executives with large enough taxable accounts, generally $1 million or more, there are portfolio structures specifically designed to generate harvested losses that offset the gains as you diversify. Direct indexing and tax-aware long-short strategies can generate annual federal tax savings from the same market exposure as a standard index fund by owning the underlying stocks directly instead of through an ETF. These results are dependent on portfolio size, assumed volatility, turnover, and other factors. Those losses can be applied against the concentrated position gains as you sell, significantly reducing the tax drag on the unwind. Concentration builds your wealth, diversification protects it. Lesson 6. The Roth conversion window closes when RMDs begin. Required minimum distributions begin at age 73 under current law. At that point, the IRS controls how much you withdraw from your pre-tax retirement accounts, whether you need the income or not. Those withdrawals are ordinary income. They stack on top of Social Security, investment income, and anything else on the return. And the rate you pay on them is largely determined by decisions made or not made in the years before 73. Between retirement and 73, something important happens for many executives. Income drops significantly, the salary stops, deferred compensation distributions may have ended. Social Security is still deferred. For a window of years, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, income is at its lowest point in decades. That is the Roth conversion corridor, the years when you can move money from a pre-tax traditional IRA or 401k into a Roth IRA, paying tax at this year's low rate rather than the higher rate the RMDs will impose in the future years. Every dollar converted in this window is a dollar that will never force a distribution, never stack on Social Security, and never compound the Medicare surcharges that follow high-income retirees year after year. The math is straightforward. If your effective rate in the conversion year is 17% and your projected marginal rate in the RMD years is 24%, you are capturing a 7-point arbitrage on every converted dollar. On $800,000 of conversion, that is roughly $55,000 in direct savings before you account for the tax-free growth of those dollars for the rest of your life. The window is finite. It closes when RMDs begin at 73 or earlier if other income sources turn on and fill the low-rate years. Model the corridor before retirement, not during it. The executives who capture this are the ones who built the plan while the window is still open. Lesson 7. The most expensive mistakes are often not complicated. Many times, they're defaults that nobody questioned. After 10 years of working in this space, the single most consistent observation I have is this. The executives who leave the most money on the table are not the ones who made bad decisions. They are the ones that made no decisions. The 22% withholding is a default. Nobody sets it to protect you. It is just the payroll system's approximation. The FIFO lot setting is a default. Nobody chose it to optimize your taxes. It's just the brokerage standard setting. On your deferred compensation, the lump sum distribution election is a default. Nobody at HR is modeling your retirement income picture when that form is handed to you. They are processing enrollment. The auto sell at RSU vest is a default. The system sold shares to cover withholding because that is what it does. It does not ask whether this year was a good year to realize the gain, whether those were right lots to sell, or whether any of it should have gone to a donor-advised fund instead. Every annual enrollment window, October, November, whatever your company's timeline, is a planning event. The deferral percentage, the distribution schedule, the investment elections inside the plan, those decisions compound for years. They deserve more than 10 minutes of autopilot. The executives who capture the most value from the compensation packages are not smarter. They did not have better luck. They treated each of these windows as a decision that mattered, and they had someone in their corner who was looking at the full picture when the window was open. Let's quick review those 7 lessons. Lesson 1. 22% is probably not your tax rate. Project in Q2. Lesson 2. Consider HIFO lot selection before every RSU sale, not after. Lesson 3. Stock options are a stock bet. Model both axes before you exercise. Lesson 4. The distribution election may be more important than the deferral percentage. Think about it before enrollment. Lesson 5. Concentrated stock is a risk problem. The tax bill is the cost of waiting. Lesson 6. The Roth conversion corridor closes at 73. Model it before retirement. Lesson 7. Many of the most expensive mistakes are defaults. Treat every enrollment window as a planning event. If any one of these landed for you, or if you recognize one of them as something you've been doing on autopilot, the full breakdown on each one of these is in the series. Link in the description. And if you want to model what your specific situation looks like across all 7, the calendar link is also below. No pitch, just your numbers. Subscribe if this is new to you. We build content specifically for these executives navigating these decisions. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.